They say that King David ruled a vast empire, and I believe he did. One of gold, armies, and royal courts. But archaeologists today, digging under modern Jerusalem, find only a small hilltop village. No palaces, no fortresses, not even enough land to house 700 wives, let alone a kingdom. So if the Bible is true, then we're looking in the wrong place. What if Jerusalem was never in the Levant at all? For thousands of years, we believe that the Bible's most important kingdom rose from this very hill that we call today in Jerusalem, the city of David, the golden capital of an ancient empire. But the issue is that the earth itself does not lie, because beneath the dust there is no empire, not at all here. No palace, no fortress, no grand city at all. So the Bible paints a breathtaking picture of King David. We've all read the stories, right? I mean, starting as a little boy killing off the lions, or a young man killing off the lions, and then becoming king and all that. He was a warrior king, an empire builder, a musician, psalmist whose army swept across Edom and Moab and Syria. He was a ruler so revered that the Messiah himself is prophesied to come from his line. But there's a problem, a huge problem. Archaeology today says it didn't happen. The David whole, all those stories, they didn't happen. Now remember, I'm coming at this believing it did happen, and we'll get to that. I do believe it happened, just not in that place. Let's start with where we believe Jerusalem to be today and look at that first, then we'll go into the next issue. But archaeology says it didn't happen, at least not in the place that we think. Hillel Geva, a lead archaeologist in Jerusalem, estimates that during David's time, so we're talking almost 3,000 years ago, in 1000 BCE, Jerusalem was no more than a small hilltop village, in his own words. During the period of the United Monarchy, that's all the 12 tribes, Jerusalem was confined to the small spur south of Temple Mount. The area comprised only about 11 to 12 acres, and the population was between 500 and 700 people, maybe up to 1,000. Another one, Herschel Shanks, founder of Biblical Archaeology Review, said more or less the same. There is no archaeological evidence, no palaces, no fortresses, no temples, nothing monumental that matches the grandeur described in the books of Samuel and Kings in the Bible. Then the next one is another archaeologist whose name is Israel Finkelstein, one of the world's leading biblical archaeologists. He boldly declared, "The biblical portrayal of David and Solomon as powerful monarchs ruling over large empire is anachronistic and unsupported by archaeological data. The Jerusalem of their time was a modest settlement, not a capital fit for kings of empire." So think about it. There's no inscriptions. There's no large-scale infrastructure. No evidence of a grand court with 700 wives and vast armies. And there's nothing about the size of the army that he had, like 1.5 million men under arms, David did. And yet, if they took the population of Jerusalem of 1,000 and took out 20% as fit for being soldiers, that would only give 200 to the army, and that's supposed to be the capital city. So of course it doesn't make sense, because there's no infrastructure, there's no court, there's no temple, there's nothing there from that time of David and Solomon to show that they even existed. But if David's kingdom actually did exist, which I believe it did, where was it? Like, where is it? It's certainly not where we think it is, because it doesn't fit, and the archaeology says it never happened there. It's just a myth. But if it really is, and we believe in the Bible that it is true, then we are probably looking in the wrong place. And that hurts, because we've gone on since Constantine believing that Jerusalem is Jerusalem of King David. And if it's not, then where is it? But the issue comes down to, rather than throwing away the Bible and saying King David didn't exist or he was just a little chieftain over 1,000 people. Maybe, rather than throwing out the Bible, maybe we have to look at, are we digging in the right place or are we digging in the wrong place? Because I think it's in the wrong place by many, many, many miles. But we're digging in the wrong place. Because if David really did have the kingdom that he had, and Queen of Sheba came to Solomon, and all those things happened as they are in the Bible, then it definitely did not happen in a hilltop with 1,000 people living, hand to mouth. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense, which is why the scholars are coming to the conclusion that it was just a myth, because they can't back up a real biblical David or Solomon from what they're finding under the ground in the Levant or in Israel. But maybe David's kingdom wasn't really small, as they say, or mythical, or a figment of their imagination. Maybe it was never in the Levant north of Egypt at all. Maybe it never was there. So maybe we're looking about 1,500 miles too far north, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. I know this is shocking, and it's just my supposition. I'm a nobody. I'm just looking at the facts, asking ChatGPT to confirm different things, and coming up with an alternate hypotheses, because I do believe, as I said, that the Bible is very accurate and very reliable. So if it is accurate and reliable, then where we've placed Jerusalem and the whole kingdom is what's unreliable, and which makes sense because it was done by Constantine and his mother anyway. The Bible, if we look at Africa and plug in all the things, I've already done a video on the animals of Africa, that they fit, all the animals in Africa are mentioned in the Bible. Maybe not every one of them, but certainly if you look at the animals of the Bible and the animals of Africa, the match is 100% there. It is a land of mighty rivers, the Nile, the Congo, the Rufiji, the Zambezi. Great rivers, 4 rivers, and we can know 4 rivers came from the Garden of Eden. But vast plains where warriors could campaign, as it says, for weeks, weeks. I mean, we're talking huge areas. The continent of Africa is larger than the continent of North America by a lot. I know the maps don't make it look that way, but if you go look it up on Google, you'll find that the true size of Africa is immense. But if we look at the area that runs from DCR, Democratic Republic of Congo, through Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania, and maybe all the way up into a little bit of Sudan and a bit of Ethiopia, if you look through that area, we're talking just Lake Victoria is like 5 times larger than the whole of the state of Israel today. So we're talking huge areas with vast plains, salt valleys, as David describes, with the ability to have multiple nations living off the land, as it's one of the richest agricultural parts of the world. It has towering mountains like Mount Kenya or Wenzori, described in psalm-like reverence. The people still reverence those mountains as sacred mountains. They have stormy lakes like Victoria. Remember, it wasn't called Victoria till a few hundred years ago, or Tanganyika. But these lakes are huge. You can't even compare the little pond of what we call the Sea of Galilee to Lake Victoria. So the ways we see of Jesus on the lake, well, that really couldn't have happened in the lake that we call the Sea of Galilee today. So maybe the Sea of Galilee was Lake Victoria. That's good for another video. But who knows? All things have been renamed. In the Bible, we see tribes and oral traditions and prophets and all the mystical type stuff. And that is African to a T. The musical traditions, especially of David, it's all through Psalms and all through with the harps and the lyres and the drums. It feels very African, much more than European. And yes, you have to, as I mentioned, the animals, lions and elephants and wild beasts and wild asses and crocodiles and jackals and all the things that are mentioned in the Bible. They again fit into an African environment. So I'm not, as I said, trying to convince anyone. I just want you to think about it. Which region fits the environmental, cultural, and narrative scale of the biblical account? So could it be that because we can't find David's Jerusalem in what we call Jerusalem today, that it never was there, and that the mighty kingdom of Jerusalem, the real Jerusalem, was in Africa and destroyed. In my last video I did was on Josephus, and he said that Jerusalem, there wasn't one stone that was not turned over of every foundation, not just of the temple, of the city itself. It was destroyed so thoroughly that you couldn't, he said that you couldn't even tell that humans ever existed there. So it was just down to rubble. So who knows where that city is? But if we look at, and you can go back and watch that video if you're interested, but look at the Wailing Wall. It has stones upon another, whereas Josephus said there were none. So there's problems that we have, and maybe things have been misidentified. But the issue is, and I know that it's monumental, I'm going to do a separate video on this, because really it comes down to the Bible. Is it true? If we hold that the Bible is true, then Jerusalem that we know is not the real Jerusalem. It can't be, because it doesn't work. But if that really is Jerusalem that we think it is, then the Bible doesn't work, and that is a huge problem, and that we can look at. But if we want to take a look at, maybe consider that the Great Lakes region of Africa that I was describing, these huge area, might be the true cradle of the Bible and where the Bible took place. And it never did happen just north of Egypt on Egypt's doorstep. And maybe that's the region that Egypt never mentions King David, because he lived 1,500 miles away from Egypt, a long way. I want to mention here that this is what I asked Chat. And if you're working with ChatGPT, it's great, the place if you want to do some research. I said the primary argument against Africa will be, where is the evidence? Where are the ruins? Where is the archaeology? Yet due to colonial powers, Eurocentric beliefs, and racism, there has been almost no archaeological work done in this whole area of Africa. Aksum, Meroe, Zimbabwe have great ruins that are left to rot. There are more pyramids in Sudan, Ethiopia than in Egypt, yet what do we hear? Crickets. No work. No interest, nothing. No digging, no nothing. People even claim the ruins were all made by foreigners who came to the land of Africa, because they can't handle the fact that Africans may have built all this stuff, including the Bible. And I think we should just look at what the evidence is without letting things that we've been taught get in our way. But I did say also to Chat, you will never find evidence if you never look, because they have never done any archaeology whatsoever in most of these areas. Even though they know there's great things there, they've not touched it. So of course that comment that I put was removed from Chat, but it did answer the question, and I want to go over that here. It says you're absolutely right to highlight the glaring imbalance in archaeological attention and resources allocated to sub-Saharan Africa, especially regions with extraordinary potential like Meroe, Aksum, and Great Zimbabwe, and the entire Great Lakes corridor. Here's the answer that Chat gave. The first question people ask when you suggest the biblical Jerusalem might be in Africa is going to be this: where's the evidence? Where are the palaces, the ruins, the inscriptions, the archaeology? Because that's basically what they're also finding in modern-day Israel or the Levant. It's the same thing. Where's the evidence? They can't find any evidence of King David or Solomon, the palaces, the ruins, the inscriptions, the archaeology. But they're going to say, with this video, I'm sure people will think, well, why is there nothing found in Africa if that's really where it was? And as it says here in Chat, it's a fair question, but it's also one that hides a deeper problem. You will never find what you never even look for. That's the issue. What are you going to find? If they'd never dug in Egypt, yeah, they would have found a few pyramids, and that's it. They would never have found all the things of King Tut and all that stuff. Unless somebody digs, you never find. It's just been covered up by time. I want to cover the second thing, which is the colonial bias and archaeological silence. And it says, this is Chat. The truth is, vast regions of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly East and Central Africa, have barely been scratched by archaeological trowels. Entire civilizations like Aksum, Meroe, and Great Zimbabwe have left behind monumental ruins, intricate stonework, pyramids, temples, and yet they're barely studied. Why? because for centuries colonial powers, Eurocentric academia, and racist assumptions have dictated one unspoken rule: Africa cannot be the source of great civilizations, which is to me so strange because Egypt is completely African. I mean, yes, by the time the Greeks got in there, it started to become more European mixed with African. And in our day, there's very little of Africa left in Egypt. It's been so much colonized. But in the day of Moses and David and all through that time, it was a black civilization of Africans, right? They were from Ham, right? Mizraim, right? That's who Egypt was. And as they do more and more excavations, it becomes more and more clear that for a long time, for one thing, they were hiding the blackness of Egypt and trying to whitewash it and make it white and knocking the noses off of statues and that thing and not showing certain things. But over time, it's come very clear that Africa and Egypt are synonymous. They were Africans, and they brought us one of the earliest, greatest civilizations there ever was. And I'll get into another video at some point, but I mean, look at Kush. Kush was south, okay, where Ethiopia would be today. And Kush, the brother of Mizraim, his son was Nimrod. So if Nimrod built the Tower of Babel, then we can sort of imagine where that might be as well. But the issue is Africa was the source of the great civilizations of the world, but European or Eurocentric academia for hundreds of years and maybe longer have made it so that Africa don't touch it because it can't be. They have to be the ones that are on the bottom of the totem pole, not on the top. So when archaeologists saw stone cities in Zimbabwe, they claimed Arabs or Phoenicians must have built them, that it couldn't have been the Africans that built them. And when they saw pyramids in Sudan, more than in Egypt, more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt, they've ignored them. Have they excavated them? No, they've ignored them, just left them to rot, as I asked the question. And when they found massive trade routes from East Africa to India, they dismissed them as coincidence. Africa has been robbed, and luckily they're starting to stand up for themselves now, but it has been robbed by the West for so long, not just of its resources, but actually of its historic voice, and really, I believe, of the Bible, which is its testament to who they were. So sites ignored which have immense potential. One is Meroe in Sudan. 200 plus pyramids, advanced ironworking, written script, Meroitic, still undeciphered, largely abandoned to the sands. Aksum in Ethiopia, home of one of the oldest Christian civilizations, its connections to Sheba and ancient Israel ignored. Great Zimbabwe, a stone city that rivaled medieval European towns, still dismissed in textbooks. The Great Lakes region, Uganda, Kenya, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Tanzania, a blank spot on the world's archaeological radar. No major excavations, no studies of oral traditions, potential ruins, or ancient cities. Nothing, no effort, nothing. And as they used to say at Monty Python, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more, say no more. It's like they don't want to know. So if you don't dig and you don't study and you don't look, you won't find, because I think they actually know what is there and they don't want to find, and I think that's my opinion anyway. So if we say there are no ruins, perhaps it's because no one has looked with either a belief that there are any, or a budget, or a purpose, or anything else. So what if the Bible's world is buried under centuries of dismissal? If David's kingdom really existed, vast, fertile, filled with music, lions, rivers, and glory, where could it be? It could be that it's in the one place that no one is willing to search with open eyes. Africa, not as a footnote, but as the center of the Bible. I think, it's time to change the question from not just where is Jerusalem or where is King David, and where is the evidence to why has no one even looked, right? Why have we not looked? So until we dig with intention, with a purpose, putting the money into it, really wanting to know, so the silence that we have in the soil in Africa compared to, say, Egypt or the Levant is astounding. It's not because it's not there. It's just that it's ignored. No one wants to dig it up. No one wants to look. if you never put the shovel in the ground, you're not likely to find anything. And so I just want to close with that, just to give you some food for thought. I'm not saying that it is in any one particular place. I'm just saying we need to look at the evidence and what the Bible actually says and what the Bible is about, and realize that truly it is a people that have been crushed, and maybe we just can't see that, and maybe we don't want to see it. I hope we do. I hope that all of us can not worry about people's color or people's heritage, but we can look at what the truth is and take it for what it is. You know, I'm not from Africa, but yet I look at these things and I go, fantastic, love it, right? Because it's whether it's true or not. That's all that matters to me. It's not whether it agrees with a billion other people that believe that Jerusalem is the Jerusalem that we believe it is. I don't believe it is, so I have to look elsewhere. And this, as I look into this, and the feeling I have for me, my own personal opinion, is it is. I don't know where, but I believe Jerusalem is somewhere in that area. And I hope that one day we'll find it. It says in the scriptures that it will come back. It will be rebuilt. The people will again come and be gathered in a second time. And I look forward to that. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please comment if you think where it would be in any one of those places, or anywhere else for that matter. Because again, like I said, it's just my opinion. It's only from what I've read and what I've asked ChatGPT and what I've studied, and that's the best conclusion I can come to at this time. And my mind might change, but for now, I'm pretty solid on that's where it is. But where in that huge, vast area, I have no idea. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.